All right, guys, we're here with Marshal Craven. He's part of the Kingslayer Cards team. He topped today in a team tournament using Granblue. I'm gonna pass it over to him to tell us what deck he was playing, what type of deck, and his deck profile.
What's going on, guys? This is Marshall. Sponsored member of Kingslayer Cards, and today I went in with Granblue. I've been playing the deck for about a month. Been playtesting it all, like here and there. I've been having a lot of fun with this deck. This isn't your typical slow rolling Beatrice control deck that you would see from like a ton of lists from everywhere all over the internet, and only like the Granblue Facebook group, stuff like that. This is what I like to call a either Negerbolt OTK or Hypermill. So let's get started into the deck profile. First off, we have the starter, V-Series starter. Doesn't really matter which one you play. I just prefer Night Kid because like Grenache has been there for the old Grenache has been in there for a long time, and I just don't like his artwork somewhat. I just prefer Night Kid. Grade ones. We have 3 copies of Dancing Cutlass. It's counter charger, it mills a card, it calls itself. I mainly play it because it's an extender. In this deck specifically, it is a very good early game extender, which is really good. You'll see why with some of the cards that are in the deck. You'll see why I run extenders and stuff like this. But we run 3 cutlasses. This is why we run the extenders. 4 copies of Skeleton Sea Navigator. What this card does is you can rest any 2 rearguards. He doesn't have to rest himself. And then you mill 5 cards. So it's not a once per turn. So if you can continuously call extenders like Cutlass or whatever you want, you can repeatedly mill cards out of your deck. And you can get a very big drop zone very early, which allows you to swing dragons for bigger. It allows you to set up future plays. It allows you to dig for pieces that you want. It just it turns the deck on faster, which is the whole point I was aiming to do this weekend. Was I wanted to make Granblue a lot faster because I think the meta is a little too slow.
Did you have any problems decking out because of it?
The only times I had problems decking out was because I misplayed, and I didn't grab a specific card off of a Greed Shade when I needed to.
Okay.
Next for the grade ones, 3 copies of Negerbomb. Negerbomb lets you. He's another extender. He lets you drop a card from hand. You can fetch Skull Dragons out of your hand. You can fetch whatever you don't want, and he goes back to deck, which also helps with the deck out issue. And he lets you call any card you want. If you have 10 or more, you normally can only get a grade 1 or less from drop. But if you have 10 or more, which thanks to Navigator, you will normally have that. You can call any card you want. So this is what's used to call your Skull Dragons, you can call your Columbards to extend. You can call Beatrice if you want to. You can call all sorts of stuff off this card. This card is great for this deck. And this is probably one of my favorite cards in this deck. Continuing on to the grade ones. So this was a tech choice that I made. It is 2 copies of Sleeve Tugging Bell. Sleeve Tugging Bell, obviously it's the card you play for Narukami matchup. Any blue or green clan will play this card at a minimum of 1. I play 2 because the type of deck that this is. It lets me have a buffer after my first stride in case something happens and they don't die. Like I don't push my opponent to 6. This thing gets absolutely massive. And then it also lets me reset drop zone. It lets me reset cutlasses. It lets me do just about anything I want, which gives me just a ton of resource. And it just lets me filter cutlasses to get more extensions out. The last grade 1 I run was a personal choice of mine, and it was a last minute choice, and I'm happy I made this choice. 1 copy of 7 Seas Helmsman Nightcrow, the original 7 Seas Nightcrow. So the whole reason this card is in here, I learned that this card is not a once per turn. It's not a once per turn, and if I don't have a 7 Seas Vanguard, I don't have to call it from the drop. I can't call it from drop. So if I have something like a Cutlass on the board that I just called, I can mill, and then I can just retire it off of Nightcrow to put it back in the drop. And use effect, if I milled another Cutlass, I can go again. It lets me reset cards. It lets me, I play it in Narukami matchup. It lets me kill my board because I play a ton of extenders.
You can also rest it again.
This card never leaves my drop zone.
Yeah.
It never leaves the drop zone. It's literally there just as a way for me to discard cards or a way to kill cards on my board. And that's like the big thing is like, especially for like chaos, I don't want to have a board. I don't want to give them rear guards to lock.
So it just stays there and you just keep popping.
I can pop whatever I want.
All right.
Definitely a clutch card, in my opinion. On to the grade 2s. This one was a little bit of a weird choice. I know a lot of people have been running 2, but I like to run 3. 3 copies of Pirate Swordsman Columbard. I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For the past 6 months. He's a foolish burial. He's a foolish burial and a monster reborn. Like, what can I say? He's an extender. Like, he's one of the best extenders in the game, in my opinion. He really needs no explanation.
He's one of the reasons why you can't miss rides either.
Exactly. And also, if I mill a Beatrice or something off of this card, off of the Navigator, and I see this card, I can call this card. I can use this card to fetch the Beatrice, and use the Beatrice to fetch another card.
Oh, wow.
So that gives me 3 cards that I can immediately use to mill 5 or sack for other rear guards or whatever I want. Next to the grade 2s, I run 4 copies of Greed Shade. This is the other part that allows me to not miss grade 3 rides. Greed Shade needs no introduction. He lets me pick up whatever I want out of my drop zone, add it to my hand, and then he lets me mill 2. This lets me grab extenders. This lets me mill a little bit of extra mill. This also lets me grab key pieces. Like in this deck, the first stride, I always make sure that I need to grab a sleeve tugging bell and keep it in my hand for the following turn after first stride in case my opponent somehow lives. So this card lets me just grab any piece that I want. This also on G-Guards lets me recycle the same heal trigger and lets me G-Guard multiple times with only 1 heal, which is just really good. Definitely one of the most broken cards in this deck. Next we go on to the grade 2s, the one of tech slots. 1 Cannoneer needs no explanation. Denial Griffin play with Beatrice and Negro Lily. And then just being able to selectively pop rear guards and draw cards is really good. 1 copy of Jesse the Ghosty. I play Jesse because he's an extender, and he can kill 2 rear guards and call himself from the drop to the board. And then when he swings for 14k, and I get to countercharge. This is really good. He's like I say, he's a free extender. That's why I wanted to run him. And then 1 copy, and this is a new card. Dragon Undead Ghoul Dragon. So this is from the new clan selection card. It came out with this was the grade 2 that came out with Kokaida's Reverse, and it came out with Witch Doctor Negerbolt. So this is the Legion mate for anybody who's been playing the game for a while. This card is really good for 2 reasons. 1, it's a rear guard that lets me selectively pop things, which is really good, and it's pre-GB. I don't care about being a GB1 to be able to pop things, which is really good early game. Second, its bind zone effect it helps me to not deck out. So if this card is in the bind zone, what it does is I can counterblast 1 and retire a rear guard. It's an act. I choose up to 6 other normal units from my bind zone and shuffle them back into the deck.
Okay. You prefer that to the grade 1?
The grade 1 is in there to reset my drop.
Okay.
After I bind off of a later card that you'll see when we get into the grade 3s. But this lets me shuffle other normal units into the drop back from my bind zone into my deck. It prevents deck out. And if I call 4 or more, I get to call this card to the rear guard. That act skill of counterblasting 1 and retiring a rear guard is not once per turn. If I target 3 normal units in my bind zone, he doesn't call and I can activate him again and shove 6.
Okay.
So he lets me I can take any number of normal units. Normally, normal units like my navigators and stuff like that with bigger shield, I will normally shove back to deck so that way I can draw them again.
So no ship?
I do not run the ghost ship. On to the next grade 3s. We have 2 Skull Dragons. Big beat stick. In this deck, Skull Dragon can get very big very early. So he, one game that I had today while I was playing in tournament today, I played against Nightmare Dolls. I was swinging on turn 2. He tried to grade 2 game, and I was swinging 42k Skull Dragons at him while I was on grade 2. Like, I hadn't even rode to grade 3 yet, and I was just like, all right, swing. It's big. Guard it. So this card is really good in this deck. He just gets very big and very out of hand very quickly. We have 3 copies of Ghostly Leader Beatrice. She is probably the best first ride in this deck, and just a really good extender. She's an extender herself on rear guard. It's a Soul Blast. It's cool. Woo, it's free. She can Soul Blast 1, call anything from the drop when she's placed on rear guard. It's absolutely busted. She lets you call anything. She gives you defensive plays. She gives you free calls. She gives you just about anything you can want. The fact that she works on Vanguard and rear guard is really good.
She's a swift knife.
Exactly. 1 copy of Night Rose. I run the 1 copy of Night Rose for in case I go first. Because I'm milling a lot, Night Rose gets better because my dragons are bigger. So if I ride Night Rose going first, and I've milled, normally I try to activate a Skeleton Sea Navigator roughly 2 to 3 times. I try to mill at least 15 cards. If I have 15 cards, the Skull Dragons immediately get plus 30k. So this allows me to swing bigger numbers very quickly and potentially kill my opponent on the grade 3 write-up. And then also having this for Bad Bounty plays later is really good in case I know my opponent has a ton of PGs in hand. I can go into this to get more attacks instead of going into the other play, which I'm about to show you now. Next, I run 2 copies of an Overdress grade 3, 2 copies of Rotting Usurp Dragon. Rotting Usurp Dragon, he says, auto while he's in the drop zone. When my grade 3 or greater Vanguard is placed, I can call him to the board. I can call him to rear guard. He's an extender when I ride up to grade 3. He's a free body on the board. When I go into Bad Bounty plays, I can swing my dragons. The dragons will die. And then I can call these out after I ride off the Bad Bounty. Because it doesn't stay in the ride phase. Mm-hmm. And these also aren't once per turn. When they change zones, they're new entities. So they reset themselves. Really good. Free call. 100% worth. Last of the grade 3s. We have probably my favorite card in Granblue, Witch Doctor of the Dead Sea, Negerbolt. So if you don't know what Negerbolt does, at the beginning of your ride phase or your main phase, you bind all of the cards in your drop zone that are not triggers. So all non-trigger units. And then he says, auto on Vanguard, when he attacks, for every 10 cards in my drop until the end of turn, this unit gains +1 critical, and all the cards in my front row gain plus 20k power.
Jesus.
This is incremental. So the more cards in my drop zone, the more power.
Wow.
And then he has a continuous ability. All of your units gain plus 5k shield for every 10 cards in my drop. So it gives me a very big defensive play as well. So what I normally will do is I'll normally mill early with Navigator. I'll get to about 20 cards and drop. And then I will go into Bad Bounty and then go into this off the first after the Bad Bounty swing. So how it will work is I will go into Bad Bounty. After swinging 2 dragons, I will go ride this. These will get called out. This will then swing. This will swing for 3 to 4 damage. And the whole front row will gain either 40k or 60k. These become 73, which is bigger than my Skull Dragons. And my Vanguard becomes 73. Which is absolutely massive. If I know my opponent doesn't have a ton of PGs, I can kill them there.
Okay, yeah, I can see how different this deck is compared to the
yes.
other builds.
Because of his first ability, He also makes Bell a really better card than in most Granblue decks because I'm binding a lot. So when I bind a lot off of his first effect, I can call Bell, and Bell will get anywhere from 50 to 70, sometimes even 80k just by herself, which is absolutely stupid. On to the triggers. 1 OT, obviously. They're broken. You can't play a deck and not run an OT. 1 Mick the Ghosty. I run Mick the Ghosty mainly because I can use him with Negra Lily for defensive plays if I need, like against Nightmare Dolls, if I need to hit a defensive trigger and I know I can't hit it. Like I know they have the loop established, like if they have like 2 Alices or whatever. He just gives me a defensive trigger, which is amazing. I sort of wish he wasn't a 5k, but you make do with what you can. 3 copies of Chad the Ghosty. The Stride crit ups consistency. It's a crit in deck. Crits kill people. We all know the reason. 2 copies of Rampage Shade. Rampage Shade, 30k Sentinel. Better guard for early game than PGs because I don't have to discard, and most of the time they will stop just about any attack that comes my way. And it's just the ability to not have to discard to just negate an attack is really good. 2 copies of Gustion. It's a PG. What's more to state? You can call this off Negra Lily. You can superior PG. You can do whatever you want. 3 copies of Rough Seas Banshee. This card is amazing. I love this crit. I don't think this crit will ever leave this deck because one of the best things you can do in this deck is you can, if you have a Navigator in hand and I ride Columbard, I can Foolish Burial for one of these, put it in the drop, and then revive it, call the Navigator. I can rest it to mill 5, and then I can shove it to soul and draw a card. So this card is a really good draw engine in this deck. It is very nice. I really feel if I could play this at 4 and get away with it, I would. But I don't want to run. I want to try to limit as many 5k triggers as I can in my deck for defensive purposes. Last for the triggers, obviously, you know them. You love them. Grade 3 Heal Guardians. They prevent grade 3 ride-up OTKs. They give you help against Nightmare Dolls, good against aggro decks. And then also, like I said, they're grade 3 heals, which they can be pitched for stride fodder, which ups consistency of the deck. They can be called off Negra Lily to gain more shield. So that way you don't have to call like another trigger. And it's just, Heal Guardians are a necessity at this point. I don't think there's any deck that would not run at least 1 or 2. On to the G-Zone. We're going to start with the G-Guards. Honestly, this G-Zone really didn't... There are some changes I would like to make to the G-Zone, but all in all, I rarely ever used it. I used 1 stride, maybe. Because that's the whole point of the deck, is I want to speed the deck up.
Kill as fast as possible.
Exactly. And someone asked me why did I want to speed the deck up, and it's because if I play long games of premium games, especially in like a best of 3 format or like even at like during a long tournament, I don't want to have a headache afterwards. So playing a faster deck makes it where I don't have a headache. So onto the G-Guards, we run 3 copies of Negra Lily. She lets you call Beatrice, and she lets you call whatever you want. Beatrice will then call whatever you want. So you can use this for Denial Griffin with Cannoneer. You can call a Greed Shade to recycle the heal trigger you just discarded. You can call a Mick the Ghosty to give your Vanguard 10k. Like, this lets you do just about anything you want. You can call, heck, you can even call a Columbard mid-turn to Foolish Burial if you want. Like, this card is absolutely dumb with Beatrice. Next, we have 2 copies of Necronora. Big G-Guard. It's your absolutely massive G-Guard. So, also, like, anything this thing calls it's just a giant shield, and it can guard anything. Also, keep in mind, Negra Bolt, his continuous effect to gain shield also affects your G-Guardians. and whatever is called off of your G Guardians to the Guardian Circle. He just states units. He doesn't care where they're called from. So these will gain plus 10k shield just by themselves off Necrobolt. So like this becomes over 100k guard if I have 20 cards in drop. This card by itself can guard anything I want other than like an OT. And even then it can guard an OT because I can call a PG from drop. One copy of Negro Mode. Negro Mode, I wanted to run Negro Mode over the Corpse Dragon because Negro Mode, since I'm milling my deck a lot, he counts cards in deck and then gains shield because of it, or counts cards in drop and then gains more shield because of it. Since I'm milling a lot really early, he gets better incrementally, which is just really good. On to the G units themselves. This card I could probably cut, honestly, like cut down on. I don't think I need 4, but I just really didn't know what else to put. 4 copies of Big Obadiah. It's 5 Foolish Burials and then 2 Monster Reborns. Like, for anybody who plays Yu-Gi-Oh, that's absolutely stupid. Just being able to search for 5 cards and then just throw them into your drop can immediately swing a game around. Because I can go from having a really bad drop zone setup to a really good drop zone setup in this, like that.
Most million decks filtering the triggers.
Exactly. Next we have 3 copies of Bad Bounty. This card, I run it at 3, mainly because this card also helps me win control matchups, because I can ride Skull Dragon and then just swing big Skull Dragons. And then this card lets me turns Negerbolt into an OTK, because I don't have to worry about Negerbolt being on my Vanguard at the beginning of ride, at the beginning of main, because I can just ride it with this and then just sit on it. So this lets me get around the bind clause of Negerbolt, which is just really good. This card is amazing, and I love, probably my favorite stride in Granblue, honestly. Next, we have 1 copy of Obadiah. He's here in case I get damage denied and my drop zone isn't the best in the world. But one of the things about this deck is I can function off 1 counterblast. Most of the extenders are free. They either cost soul, or they cost cards in hand, or they cost rear guards. So I can extend for nothing. And then once I get there, it's a wrap. But yeah, he's there in case I'm being damage denied and I just don't have a drop. Like, I don't have a proper drop zone. He lets me just fetch for 3 cards and throw them in. 1 copy of the GB8. I run 1 copy of the GB8. This card, in my opinion, this card is absolutely good. Calling 5 cards and calling them and then giving everything 10k is just really good. It lets you build a board for nothing. To be honest, my games didn't go that long. My games didn't go long enough, and I'm trying not to make them go long enough to go into the GB8. But it's there in case it needs to. Yeah. Last card in the G Zone is a Progenitor Dragon of Deep Sea Balin Arena. If I need free stride, it's here. If I need to pop, if I have more cards in my opponent's hand and they're 5 damage, it's a wrap. GG. We're done. It pops Guardians. It just does everything.
Did you use it today?
I didn't use it today at all. But I didn't need to, because most of the time this will kill them anyway. So that is it for the deck profile.
Marshall, before we finish, are there any other shout outs you want to give?
If I can give any other shout outs, I would like to give a shout out to Kingslayer Cards. You can go message anybody, you can go to the website, you can go to TCG, whatever. They most of the time will always have inventory. I've never had an issue getting cards, and they're just a great group of people. I love to come down here. It's a very competitive environment. Anytime they have an event in South Miami, it's always a good time. I have a blast every time, and I live about 5 hours from here, so it's a rough ride. And like I said, I try to come down as much as I can because the competitive environment is there. When it comes to other shout outs, I want to give a shout out to all of the people back in Jacksonville, Florida. It is a competitive environment. We have a ton of good players. We have a ton of good judges. When it comes to rulings, I never have an issue. and then we all try to push each other to get better. And that's just what you really want for a format, for a community. So I just want to give a shout out to them. Last shout out I want to give a shout out to one of my best friends and a very good playtest partner of mine. His name is Alexander Sarandon. He plays Granblue, and we've been for the past 2 years. He's been my main playtest partner. We've been playtesting and we've been brainstorming this deck since Negerbolt got revealed. And we think that it's a really good deck and it has very good potential. And I proved that today. I've lost one game today, and it was to Jewel Knights. So I even beat some of my worst matchups and some of the better decks in the format, including Nightmare Dolls, which is like the big boogeyman. So I just want to give a shout out to him. He's been a great help when it comes to playtesting. He's a great friend and a great guy. I can't wait to see him again. Hopefully I'll get to see him in Springfest, which I'm excited for, and I can't wait to see everybody there. So we'll see you guys on the circuit. Peace.
Thank you very much for your profile. Congratulations on topping, and we'll see you soon.
See you then.